So after the disappointment that was Masters of the Universe Revelation, I have seen various groups made for and by fans that have been torn apart between those who love the show and those who felt cheated by Kevin Smith, who knowingly misled them. Amongst the opinions from this second faction, one has caught my attention more than any other, and that is that this thing is so horrible and so terrible and filled with so many mistakes that it cannot be fixed. Of course, that got me thinking whether that was possible or not. After all, I myself think that the series has problems from the very first episode. So, in order to perform this monumental feat, I will try to fix first only the first episode of Masters of the Universe Revelation. Bear in mind, dear viewer, that I am no professional writer. I'm just a fan who has been invested in this universe since I got to know it. Also, if you like this humble attempt and want to watch me fix the rest of the episodes, let me know in the comments down below. So without further ado, let's dive into this. The first episode begins with He-Man taking two prisoners, Spycore and Clawful, and they are with Strider. They are heading for Castle Grayskull. Right off the bat, I think that there is a huge mistake here. All the trailers and promotional images that we had for this show depicted He-Man with Battle Cat, who also serves as his steed. To now have him go with Strider seems a little bit off, especially considering that this was a toy that was marketed mainly in the 2-packs in the 1980s with Fisto, another character that we also see for some mere seconds in the show. So to have He-Man go with Strider seems a little bit off, and also would raise the question, where's Battle Cat? So can this be fixed? I think that this could easily be fixed by having Panther disguised as Battle Cat. After all, both Spycore and Clawful are disguises for Skeletor and Evelyn respectively, and Nightmare is standing in for Strider. Couldn't you have had Panther then, and then disguise him as Battle Cat? I think that it is very possible. And now that I mentioned this, here I find another crass mistake that evidences the poor writing, which by the way was all Kevin Smith. Yeah, he wrote this first episode. When the party approaches the castle, the sorceress comes down transforming herself into Soar, the falcon that we see there, only for her to turn back to her human form right at Grayskull's door. Why would she do that? And even more baffling, why would she do that in front of her enemies? This is not only out of character, but completely unnecessary. More so when it is revealed that she knew it was a Skeletor all along and she wasn't fooled. Why would you show yourself to your enemies in such a way? And even also, why would you open the castle's door to them? Terrible, terrible mistake. To fix this, just have Sorceress not open the goddamn castle to them. She could just be inside and on one of the towers coordinate the attack from that point. She doesn't have to leave the castle, she's still in. She could use those crystals that we saw in this first episode, or she could just right away telepathically call He-Man. But she doesn't need to transform and show that she can do that to her enemies, and of course she also doesn't need, in this case, to open the doors to Castle Grayskull. Now, about all that, remember that in the episode the sorceress isn't fooled by Skeletor, we already mentioned that. But she is fooled by Faker, who is standing, by the way, for He-Man, and is standing right behind her, and she is gotten a hold of by Faker quite easily. As stated above, she can contact He-Man telepathically because she has a psychic connection to both him and Man-at-Arms. Did she then forget about that? And worse is that she gets captured and taken into the castle. And there she finally breaks free, waiting all the way to go into the castle, and then she can contact He-Man. Can this be fixed? Yes. Have her call He-Man before anyone gets to enter the castle. And also, as stated, keep her inside the castle, don't open the door, and nobody has to touch her. Now that we have a final battle taking place outside Grayskull with these fixes that we have made, we have both heroes and villains on both sides. The battle can be fierce and could also mean greater stakes for both factions. Maybe you are right now asking how Skeletor is going to get into the castle and get the magic orb just as we saw in the show. Well, if I had written this, I wouldn't have him go in and would prefer a little bit more development in that department, like having the villains defeated and then retreating, and while they are licking their wounds, find something that would reveal to them, and mainly to Skeletor, that the power sword is the object that would allow them entrance and also access to the orb. Since we are never told this in the first place, I think that this will be the right place to know this. Also because we don't know how Skeletor knows that the power sword can open that pyramid, and also we don't know how Skeletor knows about this orb. So this could be a very good opportunity to explain that. So we only have the chance to get Skeletor in here, alright? Why? Because none of that is what actually happened in the show, and if we stick to what we saw in the show, we have him go in, and then what can we do to that? He is in, that's okay. Have him find it hard to get to the Hall of Knowledge. It's way too easy for him to get in and lure He-Man into stabbing him with the sword. The power shouldn't be that easily accessed. If we have a greater challenge and the odds are high, the characters have to do better, and of course that also helps us get invested into this thing. He might overcome the obstacles, yes, that's sure, and that is also fine, but if we have him fight He-Man in the hall for a little bit longer also raises the possibility that Skeletor is overpowerful, because in this case, as it happened in the show, it just seems as if he's fooling everyone, but with really not that much of an effort. Then in the hall we see Mossman for the first time, and he is killed merely seconds later. Can we fix this? I don't know. I would have had Mossman toss Skeletor away from the castle. But since that's not what happened, I think we could have Mossman restrained by Evelyn's power, since she's there fighting Tila. But at some point, the plot sort of forgets who is there, that she's there. If no one is there, they forget completely what characters they have and what they have to work with. Convenient, right? This is another issue with the first episode. When Man-at-Arms makes it to the castle, he destroys Faker, and even though he has already defeated his enemy, he stays there. He's trying to restrain Nightmare, while there are also soldiers doing the same thing. I mean, what? His enemy was already defeated. Even Sorcerer seems frozen in time, still holding the Force Shield when there was no more enemy there to fight. She was holding that force field because Faker was trying to get at her. This is just ridiculous. Just for sheer number superiority, Skeletor shouldn't have been able to triumph. But we had it differently, right? Because Skeletor was there with Evelyn alone into the hall, and with more heroes arriving, he would have just been defeated inside, even if outside there was a massacre. Were it up to me, as stated before, I would have had Skeletor and his forces defeated before they could reach the Hall of Knowledge. They wouldn't have even made it into the castle. But if they have to because of the plot, and because this is the thing that they created, at least have other evil warriors break in as well into the castle. They could keep the rest of the heroic warriors busy, and we could also see a little bit more action from them before He-Man gets killed alongside Skeletor, and we could also have a reason to keep the heroes busy, because in reality it just looks like they forgot that they had these characters there. Speaking of that, once again, I wouldn't have had He-Man killed. If we are going to have him stripped from the power sword, I think it's better to keep him alive. If I had written this thing and it was necessary to have He-Man powerless, then I'd make the sword go missing, and then, because his Adam form is weaker and of course less trained, I would have him be trained by Andra as Lieutenant and by Mechanic, for example. At the same time, they are protected Eternals. And then also, We could have Tila, Man-at-Arms, and Stratos, for example, look for the sword, while Fisto, Bazov, Ratman, and Clamchamp protect the castle, or since Clamchamp is the king's bodyguard and he has to be in Eternos, have him train with Adam and Andra and change places with Mechanic, for example. Still, He-Man died in this show, and we all know what happened later. Tila got all grumpy and threw tantrums all over the place. Can that be fixed too? Yes, easily. I see two possible different outcomes here. One, that she composes herself and tries to console the king and queen for the loss of their son and decides to vow to make Eternia a safe place for everyone from that point forwards, but finds it hard as the land is suffering with the lack of magic, of course, and the power vacuum provoked by Skeletor's death, thus creating a war in which all his evil henchmen and Evelyn are in a sort of gang war that's ravaging the land and its inhabitants, and Tila and the forces of Eternos feel overwhelmed. The rest of the kingdoms, such as Avium for example, join the efforts to protect people and put a stop to these revolts, until it becomes evident He-Man's greatly needed, and some of the Masters of the Universe set out to bring He-Man back by recovering the Power Sword. 2. Things happen as we saw in this first episode, and King Randor goes all mental and banishes Man-at-Arms from the kingdom never to return, but behaving like a piece of crap that he is in this show, he orders Tila to get rid of him. Feeling betrayed as she cannot kick the man who raised her and who brought her up, she refuses and quits, living with her father and becoming herself an exile alongside him. They live their lives with difficulty, so Tila becomes a mercenary while Man-at-Arms finds Orko terribly sick and takes care of him at the same time that he builds Robata in order to help Tila and continue the fight. And that's my fix for Masters of the Universe Revelation Episode 1. Let me know what you think, and also if you like it and want me to try and fix the other episodes down below in the comments. Please let me know what your opinions are, because that helps me also improve. Until next time, peace out.